welcome to another episode of HomeTech.fm. Jason Griffin here. So happy to be with you. Seth, how are you?
Doing well. Had an interesting evening today. Yesterday I had a really good day when I replaced a 256 gigabyte SSD drive on my Mac with a 960 gigabyte SSD. Yeah. I thought I was king of the world until it completely and totally crashed on me 30 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah, you send me a picture and you're like, uh-oh, I might be late. And we actually had an interview lined up here, and so we were kind of trying to figure out what we were going to do. I'll tease that a little bit. Seth, you and I have been kind of kicking this idea back and forth for a little while, and I'm excited to be moving forward with it. And we want to kind of make it a semi-regular thing where we bring a listener onto the show to talk about, just who they are and what their interest in the smart home is, and maybe some interesting or unique projects that they have going on. And tonight tonight is going to be the first episode that we present to that effect. And so we had one of our early fans on, one of our most loyal fans that we exchange emails with very regularly, by the name of Jonathan Horvath, and really enjoyed the conversation. He's got some really interesting stuff going on, and certainly an interesting background. So I won't give away too much. People have to just kind of stay tuned for that interview. But we really enjoyed it. And if anybody out there is listening and interested in maybe coming on and chatting with us, certainly feel free to get in touch with us. Probably the easiest way to do that would be at the website, HomeTech.fm/feedback. Also, you could just tweet at us on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast and let us know what you've got going on. We want to kind of make this a regular thing and let our audience sort of get to know one another and kind of build up that community. But to that end, you'll hear, if you're listening, Seth's audio during that interview sounds a little bit different than it does here because he actually had to go to Plan B, right, and record on the iPad.
Yeah. Strange experience just sitting there talking to a tablet. But I have to remind myself, all this stuff works. It works really well. And, when it doesn't work, at least we have some backup options.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it was really, really cool. Really good conversation. Jonathan's a tinkerer, and I don't think what he's doing is very, very far off from what the professionals do. I mean, he's kind of doing his own custom system, if you will. Yeah.
Getting in there under the hood, right?
Yeah. So he's not too far away from the pro stuff, which I find really cool, because it's, if I wasn't in this industry, that's probably what I would be doing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we wanted to kind of kick off the show here tonight with a little piece of clever, we should say, merchandising or marketing by Radio Shack. And this was just too funny. It was shared by a guy named Colin Thomason. I don't think he'll mind me saying his last name because it's on Twitter. But it was under the live install hashtag, which obviously you and I follow and talk about regularly. And Radio Shack's having these sort of fire sales everywhere because they're filing for bankruptcy and they're just trying to get rid of, all of their product and old inventory. And they had one display out, and we'll put a picture to this up on the show notes at HomeTech.fm. They had one stand with tie wraps, duct tape, and knee pads all on the same stand. And it's
got 50 shades of Radio Shack.
Yeah, and 50 shades of Radio Shack.
I mean, so what are knee pads doing at Radio Shack? I mean, the duct tape I can get, tie wraps, I could get behind, but I don't understand the knee pads. But okay, whatever works, Radio Shack.
Yeah, at least you got to give them credit for a sense of humor, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, and they're kind of coming out and saying this last week that their stock is pretty much worthless, right?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You got to give them credit for a sense of humor, because they're definitely going through some tough times at Radio Shack right now. And like I said, filing for bankruptcy, and saw a report come out this week where they basically just came right out and said, you know what, our stock is worthless. The stuff we have to sell is just not going to recoup basically nearly what we owe our creditors and equity holders. And so basically they're kind of just putting out the warning, right, and saying you may as well forget about recouping your investment, which I'm sure is going to sting for quite a few people. I know that Sprint, I believe, was a big backer of theirs, owed about $6 million, I think, from what I saw, and a number of other big names on that list that have a lot of money in the game and certainly can't be too happy about this news.
No, not at all. And I think it's a good time to buy. I mean,
it's going to come back.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously, this isn't a money show, but
right.
I think it's a good time. Look at it.
Don't take stock advice from Seth.
It's 15 cents a share. I mean, how could you go wrong?
I don't know, man. I'm curious. I can't even remember what it was now, but I feel like I saw one headline going through one of my feeds that I follow that was basically something about Radio Shack was going to be rebranding, and I just don't know where they go from here. We've kind of kicked it around before and feel like they sort of missed the boat, right, with the kind of all the rage in the smart home right now, and maybe there was an opportunity there if they had kind of seen the writing on the wall to sort of position themselves as kind of a central place where you might be able to go buy things like Smart Things or Revolve when they were still around, or Nest. And I think there was a good opportunity there for them, and probably one that they're kicking themselves over. Yeah,
they wasted all the money on duct tape and knee pads
and $20 RCA barrels.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think, I mean, this looks like kind of what Circuit City went through, and they're no longer around at all. Mm-hmm. I don't know. They missed their opportunity way too many times. It felt like over the past number of years. I think I was even Radio Shack one year. Taking my annual trip to the mall, December 20th, for Christmas shopping, and I walked into a Radio Shack and saw that they were selling those tape players that. Like, okay, first off, they were selling tape players.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be the punchline right there.
Right, but it's the kind that you put like the C-cell batteries in, and has the big square buttons on them, and they're one red record button. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, why does this exist? Why is there a display with with tapes? I didn't even think they sold tapes anymore, but there they were at Radio Shack.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of good people working at Radio Shack, and definitely, certainly not trying to poke too much fun at a kind of a bummer of a situation for them. But I'm, confident all those people will come out fine, and it was just time. Speaking of sort of the money angle of stories, another story that we wanted to touch on this week that's near and dear to our hearts, and actually in a way ties back to why we even started doing the show in the first place. Julie Jacobson from CE Pro had written a story this week about there was a stock analyst who came out and basically just kind of ripped into Control4. The title of that report or that blog post or whatever it was Control4, no control of its own destiny. And they essentially in the report kind of trashed Control4 as a stock and basically pointed out all of the reasons why, as a company, they're facing a quote that I saw was insurmountable headwinds. And Julie's response to that was, of course, this is overstated. Here's the reasons why. And just an interesting argument. And really, this is just a trend that you and I really follow with home tech and being professional integrators. And where does this convergence lie? And what does all of this mean for professional integrators and home technology at large? So be curious to hear your thoughts about that, Seth.
Yeah, I mean, this guy who wrote this seems to, as Julie pointed out, is referencing basically that the business model that Control4 is following, I guess the dealer market, their dealer business model, is going to go away and evaporate into nothingness. And that's kind of the basis of his argument, I believe. And then that companies like Apple, Google, Samsung, and Microsoft will come in and just own home automation with, 0 years of experience. And, I get that argument. But I can tell you right now, what I've seen from those companies, each one of them, I mean, Microsoft has been trying to get into home automation for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And failed miserably a couple of times. Now they're kind of getting behind Insteon, or at least partnering up a little bit with them. I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about this, because I think we talked a little bit about this in, before, when we were going over what we wanted to talk about in the show. Dealers can't put their head in the sand at all, and think that products from Apple, and neither can Control4, or neither can Crestron or Savant or any of these other professional installed products. I mean, they can't put their head in the sand and think that this lower level, entry level product is going to not make a dent in their business in some way. But as we talked with Jonathan, and I promise I'm not gonna spoil too much. A lot of the product and tools that we've been using are really just like in their infancy, and they're coming in down market, but they're just not quite ready yet. We're still in that early adopters phase right now.
I think just like with a lot of things, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And what I saw when I looked at this back and forth between this original article and then Julie's response is you're kind of seeing two diametrically opposed opinions there, and you're really seeing the opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that there is validity and truth in both of those pieces, and we'll put them up in the show notes for people to read. I agree with you completely. I think anybody who, you use the term, puts their head in the sand and tries to delude themselves into believing that there's not going to be a dent made in our market share by companies like Google and Apple and Samsung coming into the space, you're kidding yourself if you really believe that. I mean, I think that's obvious. But I also don't think that a company like Control4 is necessarily just going to evaporate in the face of that. I certainly think that the argument is a little bit different. Like, you and I are integrators, and when we talk about, Julie's response was basically like, she kind of read this initial article or analysis as almost a condemnation of the entire systems integration industry. And I think that that is certainly not what we're seeing right now. Like, even if we assume that companies like Apple and Google are going to bring perfectly executed products to the market, there's still going to be a demand for people to come out, install, and service them. So I think systems integrators just have to be aware of what's going on and have to be ready to adapt to the new market. Obviously, the implications for a manufacturer like Control4, Crestron, Savant are different. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's all doom and gloom for a company like Control4. I just think that obviously all of these companies need to have people on their board of directors or at the highest levels of leadership that are really paying close attention to what's happening in the market and figuring out creative ways that they can add value and position themselves in the face of that.
Yeah, and we also talked a little bit, again, no spoilers, about awareness. I mean, that's a big word. People are more aware of home automation today because of companies like Nest, Alarm.com, these very large, Apple, these very large companies coming into the market, and they're realizing that you can already do most, if not all, of the stuff that is being promised that can be done down the road today. You just may have to pay a little bit more for it. Because you're an early adopter. I mean, that's the way this goes. And then when those technologies are proven and they come down market, you can purchase those and put them in your house when they work. But I'm sure at that point in time that there is going to be a professionally installed and maintained product that works just as well, if not better, kind of pushing the envelope in another direction as well. So I get it. I understand what he was writing about. I understand Julie's counterpoints. But I like you said, I think both are a little bit right in some way.
Yeah.
And the future is going to be good for everyone here. I mean, as long as, there may be a couple of businesses that have some tough times, but
the consumer wins out.
Yeah,
right?
The consumer, you and I, we're all going to win out.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. And I just think it's a fascinating conversation. And again, just to bring it full circle, kind of when you and I sat down a little over a year ago and talked about doing this podcast, that was one of the main reasons that we wanted to do it, is to kind of just study where that convergence is and really understand and keep a pulse on where all of this is going and what it means for both consumers and home technology professionals. And again, the people out there, the tinkerers, the do-it-yourselfers that are really just into home automation. Where does this all go? And I think that segues perfectly into our conversation with Jonathan. Again, he's got a lot of really interesting stuff going on, interesting background, and just really enjoyed having a chat with him and getting to know one of our listeners. And again, we hope to do this semi-regularly. So if you're listening and you're interested in maybe coming on the show, don't be shy. Reach out, HomeTech.fm/feedback, or on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. So with that said, why don't we jump into our conversation with Jonathan? Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're most welcome. We're pleased to have you. So this is an idea really that Seth and I have been kicking around for a while, and just sort of a meet the listener segment. And Jonathan, you've been one of our most interactive guests. We've exchanged quite a few emails with you in the little over a year that we've been doing the show, and we really appreciate all the feedback that you've given us and all of the suggestions. So we're happy to have you. Why don't we jump right in and just let you introduce yourself and maybe tell our listeners a little bit about you personally, what you do now, and kind of your background or interest in the smart home.
Well, my name is Jonathan Horvath. I've been into technology. I've been playing with computers since I can remember, since like the 80s. Since I went through school. I ran an IT department for a startup in the access control industry, security access control. And eventually I got to more of a software engineering development career path over the past 10 years. And that was still in the security access control. So I developed software for card readers and digital video cameras. And now I'm at a startup, and I'm kind of throughout my career, I've been working on integrating, I've seen how security systems integrate with automation systems throughout my career in more of a commercial setting. And in the past 6 months, I've kind of came to, seeing how prices come down as a home hobby as far as home automation. I went out and bought some switches and started messing around, developing my own software to automate my house.
Yeah.
And it's come to a point where now I have different devices. I have a thermostat. I have light switches. I just got a door lock, which you guys put the review on. And my own personal system has grown over the past 6 months.
Yeah, that's right. So we did actually, for anybody listening who may not have caught that, Jonathan actually sent us a very thorough review of his smart lock, and really useful information in there. And we posted that up on our blog at HomeTech.fm/blog. And I know you've got, like you alluded to, some really interesting stuff going on in your home. I'd like to just touch real quick before we jump into that. You said right now you're working on a startup company that's kind of in the access control security software space. Can you tell us just a little about that?
Yes. So the access control has a lot of similarities to home automation. We have inputs and outputs, so and different events that occur. So if someone badges into, a lot of people have badges that they use to get into the office, so they'll use that badge to get into the office. That may trip off a camera to record the activity. So there's a lot of the same scripting that you would see in home automation. And actually, the security systems a lot of times will actually automate things in the office. So I've, scripted and seen where, like, if you badge into the office, it'll keep track of occupancy count and then perform different things. If there's people in the office, turn on lights, disarm the burglar alarm. If there's a fire, you can track how many people you have. Fire alarm, you can track how many people are in the building. So, and I've actually worked at with some larger companies that I've seen actual automation from, like, as you would see in home automation, you would push a key button on the phone and it would turn on lights. So I've seen it more in the commercial setting, and I guess maybe it's because I'm working at a startup again. I've kind of been trying to think of more innovative ways and dig down and actually create, the home, automation scripts and stuff that kind of gotten away from from my previous job.
Right. I kind of have the same, not so much the same background, but I did security for a number of years, both residential and commercial, but also, we would install the access control systems with the door locks and everything. And the automation, I mean, it really does, like you're saying, it does already exist in office buildings and, commercial spaces right now. And we're just now seeing some of that stuff being brought into the house. So I find it interesting, the path that's led you into being into the home automation arena, so to speak. It's a similar path as the one I took, because I have kind of a deep, I don't know how to say, a respect for security and how you can build out a home automation system from those sensors, like door sensors, door locks, and motion detectors, those kind of things. The occupancy thing is that's really big right now in commercial, and not so much on the home. I'm kind of interested to hear what your thoughts are on that. I've had mixed results commercial. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll throw the question out to either one of you, Jason, too. Have you guys done much with occupancy, both in the house and maybe in commercial?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I've seen different methods. I've seen intelligent video tracking people coming in and trying to count them. And the only surefire way of doing it, I've seen it work out on the field, is if you have like a turnstile. So I don't know if you've ever seen one of those offices where you badge in and then only one person at a time.
I've got one of those in my house.
Yeah, so it's very hard to do at your home.
You can put one of those at the entry to every room, and there you got a micro-location system.
Yeah, but what you guys were talking about in previous shows with the micro-location, using your phone to track you with Bluetooth, I think once those technologies mature, there might be, the occupancy in the home could allow you to do much more complex and more seamless automation within your home, where you can walk into a room, just automatically turn on the lights because you've entered into that room. And that is very interesting. I think that will, when those technologies mature and they're affordable, I think that will kind of kick home automation to another gear.
Yeah. Have you? It's kind of one of those things in our industry that people talk about the Bill Gates house. I don't know, Jason, you've probably heard these stories too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like urban legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Bill Gates has this house where he can walk around and the house recognizes what room he's in and changes the artwork on the walls to be something he likes. And I don't know if any of it's true.
From what I hear, it is. Actually, our access control system, the company I worked at actually installed the access control system at his house. It was a separate access control. Yeah.
Interesting.
I can't remember any specific stories, but I've heard some talk about, like, he has such an elaborate setup that he needs his own commercial level access control system there.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, most of the homes we work in, that Jason and I probably work in are more like commercial buildings than they are residential homes. I mean, you're dealing with sometimes 20 and 30 HVAC zones in some of these homes. It gets kind of ridiculous. But so I mean, the Bill Gates thing, it's like I said, urban legend. I don't think I've ever talked to a company that didn't have some skin in the game in that house. So I think they used every contractor or every manufacturer out there to execute some portion of that house. But let's talk about a little bit about your house. What have you got going on in there?
So I started out a year ago. I got a Wemo switch from Belkin, and I installed that, and that kind of got me interested. About 6 months ago, I thought I'd take it to another level, and I bought a Z-Wave thermostat. And that's when I started building my own software to integrate that. And then kind of caught the bug and bought some more devices. So I bought some more light switches. I bought an appliance switch to turn off we have an oven. And then, like I said, I bought the lock. So it's growing. It's growing pretty regularly, steadily for the past 6 months. Seems like every month I get a new device. I just got a garage door opener. I haven't installed that yet.
Well, that's one of the cool things about home technology now and where it's all going is that you can really get started with a couple little point solutions. If you have a very specific thing that's nagging you, or maybe just a cool feature that you want to add to your house, you just go out and spend a little bit of money, and you can start adding these little things together. And it didn't used to be like that. You used to really have to go all in if you wanted home automation. And now, it's really opened up the door for people to just sort of dip their toes in the water. And I think you're a perfect example of that. I mean, a guy who's started with a couple of things and realized sort of the power of it and how cool it is. And you just enjoyed it and kind of jumped in. And I think that I really want to make sure that we touch on, and I want to jump in because you've told Seth and, you've told me and Seth a little about this, and I really want to share with our audience is you've taken a pretty unique approach to your home automation in the sense that you haven't gone out and bought a commercial hub, but you've actually sort of developed your own system using open source tools. Can you talk about that?
Well, in my mind, there was two main reasons I went this route, and at times I get frustrated and trying to get the things configured because there's a lot more work when you're custom built and everything. And I said, I just think I'm gonna go out to Home Depot and buy a hub and do it much easier. But there was two main reasons why I went this route. One, as a software engineer, I just wanted to learn how the technology worked. And sometimes the best way to learn is just get your hands dirty and go in and mess with it. And I've learned a lot more than I could ever have by just going out and buying a Wink hub and just going through the wizards and hooking it up. You kind of go under the hood. The other thing was, and I'm not really a paranoid person, but I put a lot of things on the cloud. I use a Google Drive and everything, but I have a feeling of having my entry into the house, what I do in my house, I don't feel as comfortable putting that on the cloud. Mm-hmm. I don't know if to me, it's more personal, like when I leave and enter the house than some files I put up. I don't know if that's just a personal thing. And I'm surprised that's not brought up more from people.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
So there are two main reasons. I was going to say there are two main reasons, and it's coming along. Like I said, I've used open source tools, and I don't know how many people go that route. I've noticed there's a decent amount of people online that I talk to that are also involved in setting up their own custom built home automation using these tools. I was kind of surprised how much activity was in online.
Yeah, it definitely kind of runs the gamut. And Seth and I think, have talked about it before, where we almost divide the smart home landscape up into three broad camps. And obviously I'm painting with broad strokes here, and there's plenty of crossover between those camps. But it's kind of like you have your consumers that go with the straight professionally installed systems. You have kind of the people who just go out and buy like a Nest or Philips Hue or something that they just want a very simple kind of pre-configured, in a sense, solution that they can plug and play and just be done. And then you've got guys like yourself who really like to get in and tinker. And it's not just having useful technology in your home, but it's also a fun hobby. And I think it's great. I mean, the fact that you can kind of get in there and dive in under the hood, like you said, and use open source tools. I think it's great that people get into it and really enjoy doing that. I know that you've also asked us previously about kind of the way your home automation system is scaling up and growing. And now sort of for the first time, you're really having to think creatively about the creation of, pre-configured scenes in your home. Can you talk about how that process has been going?
Well, yeah, I noticed there's a kind of a multiplicative effect. As you add more devices, there's more things you want to do. So, when I just had a thermostat and a light switch, there's not much you can do. You can adjust your temperature and you can turn on your light. But as I add a lock, when I get this garage door opener in and I got more light switches going, then you start thinking, if like the first few scenes I have now, I'm like in the morning, I had the thermostat turn on and some lights go on. So when I wake up, I don't have to be looking for light switches. I just go into the common rooms I go to in the morning. Now I'm kind of thinking of, more scenes. I reached out to you guys and I'm kind of figuring out the best way to kind of configure these scenes. And I find it's a little bit harder than you would first think. You'd think there's some standard scenes you create and you just, I would look around, but I guess it's a very personal thing. You kind of go around, as you replied earlier, you kind of go around, you kind of see what you manually do, and then you kind of replicate those actions into an automated scene.
Right. And I kind of refer to this portion that you're getting into is when I'm talking to my clients about home automation, I refer to this as lifestyle programming. Mm-hmm. Because it's not anything that we'd be able to figure out as integrators or anybody that lives outside the house. And the only way we would know that a light needs to come on at a certain time in the morning, or what time what scenes would look like is if we actually lived in the house. So we set up a couple of scenes. Mostly around entertainment ideas and then activities that you could take care of, in the room. So entertainment would have, background music. It set certain lights throughout the house to certain levels. And then maybe an activity would be like eating breakfast or kitchen cleanup or something like that. Mm-hmm. And kind of follow along those lines for your lighting scenes as well as music and audio. I'm not sure when you refer to a scene, are you just talking about lighting or are you talking about more?
Yeah, I think these would be more activities. I guess I was using scenes as a generic name for mm-hmm. Different settings, configure different settings within your smart devices, within your home as, to certain settings. So I think an activity would be a better term for this, for what I'm looking for and try and discover at this point.
Sure. And I think even in our industry, I see the terms used interchangeably. There even macros would be another term that somebody may come up with. A macro being a set of instructions that executes at a certain event, and even some other manufacturers call it just programming. Mm-hmm. So there's no rhyme or reason. There's no common, I guess what I'm getting at is there's no common language. But it's good to figure out kind of what you're talking about there and kind of try and see if we could help you out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. My initial response to Jonathan's question when we were kicking this around in the email was sort of like, it's just basically like Seth, you were alluding to, it's totally different for every end user. And there's really no template or boilerplate kind of method to this, because it really just depends on how you use the home. And so the way that I recommend people kind of approach it would just be to pay close attention for a week or so about sort of what you do manually in the house. And if there's always a light on in the kitchen, maybe during the evening when you're cooking dinner, and then around that same time there's other groups of lights that are always on, or maybe there's a certain type of music that you typically play when you're cooking dinner, or a show that you watch. Depending on the level of integration in your home, you can tie in all of these services together. And really the trick is just kind of finding where that convergence of having it be nice and convenient versus feeling like you're kind of hemmed in. And obviously you still want to have that individual control and flexibility in your home as well. So Jonathan, it sounds like that process has been sort of iterative for you and you've been kind of working through it.
Yeah, that's definitely what's happening right now. I'm curious, do you guys, as you work with the higher end clientele or the bigger system, do you regularly go back and reconfigure these activities for them, or do they do they update it themselves, the customers?
I guess I can answer for my company. That depends on the client. And really the system. I have some clients that are more than capable, kind of like yourself. They're more than capable of doing all the programming themselves, and we facilitate that as much as possible because, like I said, it's that lifestyle programming. I had one client who Um, he had actually Control 4 came out and kind of interviewed his install, but he took programming, I mean, almost to the next level. He's got keypads on his walls throughout the house, and he can push one button and have different members of his family music come from those keypad buttons. One of the most clever things that I saw that he did is he's using Control 4. So their keypads have a backlight in them. I don't know if you've seen them, but the backlight, the color could be changed. So if he leaves his gate open, which you can't quite see from the house the way his house is built, it's kind of down the road a little bit, the keypads will change their color to red. And so all you need to do is go over to a keypad that says gate, press the button, and the gate closes, and the sensor detects that the gate is closed, and they all turn green or whatever. But I thought that was a great idea, and I wouldn't have ever thought of that in a million years without that being one of those things that I don't have a gate in front of my house that I can't see. What's such a gate anyway?
Yeah.
But I would have never have thought of that, and that's something he thought of right away and did himself. And and I guess to answer the other side of that question, I'm kind of in a retirement community of the state of Florida, and most of the clients we have, I say the vast majority of the clients we have, we're having to do those types of adjustments ourselves. So yeah, the answer to your question is yes, most of the time.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll jump in here for a second as well, just to kind of speak from a broader industry perspective. This is one of the themes that we really have been talking about a lot ever since really CEDIA back in September, is this trend of companies like Savant and Crestron both really jump to mind. With Savant's the new Savant app, the version 7.0, and Crestron with Ping, and it's really about empowering the end user and giving them the ability to get in there and create their own scenes without having to pick up the phone and call their integrator. And there's always been those clients out there like the one Seth just described, and we had a client about a year and a half or 2 years ago that got his hands on the RTI software and created one of the best user interfaces that I've ever seen with RTI. But those are obviously the exception and not the rule. The cool thing right now is, with the way the industry is trending, is that you don't have to be that kind of really technologically savvy person to get in there and customize your own scene. So while I haven't seen a ton of that as a professional integrator in terms of a client who's doing it themselves, I think we're going to continue to see more and more of that moving forward.
Yeah, especially if it's a personal thing. You can't really template it. You almost every person has a little tweak that they want.
Yeah.
And the tools are getting, we kind of talked a little bit about this in our pre-show warm up. The tools are getting a lot easier to use. Back when this all started, we were typing in, I don't want to say like C level programming language type instructions into a black box, and actually compiling that and running it on a computer. That's where this has all come from. Now the interfaces are more drag and drop on the pro side, and for the end user side, it's even more abstracted to where you're getting things like Smart Things and Nest, where you're just setting up little data points, and all the software and advanced programming is taking care of all that for you. You don't have to go down and type in C-level language and memory management stuff. None of that you have to worry about these days.
And I was wondering, as all these new devices came out in the past couple of years, I've listened to your show, and it seems like every show there's a slew of new devices that are announced, or existing devices that have or existing companies that have a broader range of offerings. Have you found that your customers are demanding a lot more? They want a lot more devices integrated? Has your workload increased for a typical customer because they want a lot more? They see all these new devices and they want to add them into their system.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I think generally speaking, the answer would be yes. I would say particularly for younger clients, who are a little bit more up to speed with the technology and kind of the options that are out there, things like Dropcam and Nest. A lot of our older clients aren't quite as familiar with that stuff, so it's just not really on their radar, whereas, a client who's a little bit younger might have a technology background, even as a trade or whatever. Definitely. I think that the expectations are higher and the costs have come down, but thankfully the tools have kept up, and they've made these sort of integrations easier for us as professionals to accommodate.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that, even 3 or 4 years ago, even as it was possible, people would come into we have a showroom, and people would walk in right off the street, and you'd talk to them and you'd say, oh yeah, I can control this entire house from an iPhone or an iPad, and that would blow them away. Nowadays, it's almost expected that be part of the deal. Like it must, everything you can control with an iPad these days. So there's definitely a lot more awareness.
The bar has been raised, I would imagine with those commercials. I know you in a previous show you had a link to a commercial. I forget what product it was. It was Revolve or some product that actually showed like the home automation on a TV spot, and that obviously would raise awareness of what can be done.
Was that the perverted robot commercial?
Could have been.
I don't think that showed anything that could be done.
No, actually, I was thinking. I think it was a Revolve commercial where
Gotcha.
a girlfriend brought her boyfriend in, and
there
were sprinklers, and then she went in there and adjusted the temperature, and was doing all kinds of things from her phone or.
Yep, I do remember that. Yeah, and we'll throw a link up to that in the show notes there at HomeTech.fm, and we'll also. We'll link to the perverted robot in case there's anybody out there listening, scratching their head, going, what the heck are these guys talking about?
Yeah.
But, we're kind of running up against our time. Seth, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want to thank Jonathan for coming on the show. I want to thank, for listening, too. I mean, and supporting the show, for sure. It really, all the feedback that you and others have given has really just kept Jason and I going with this project for the year that we've been doing it, and it's keeping us going. So just thank you.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for taking the time to produce a show every week. Something I look forward to every week, and glad you guys are keep working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jonathan. If there's anybody listening who maybe might want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about like your open source project or anything else that you've got going on, do you have a Twitter handle you'd be willing to give out, or anything we can put up in the show notes?
I have a Twitter handle called ByteDreamer, ByteDreamer, and I have a GitHub account with the same name.
Cool.
So feel free to contact me or follow me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jonathan. Well, we do appreciate it, and we will let you go. Thanks again.
Thank you.